Hi guys, today we're going to have Daine McDonald, founder of Clean Health Institute, here at the studio. He's brought some of the biggest names of the fitness industry, from James Smith, Lane Norton, Hattie Boyle, all into Australia, doing massive seminars and live events and educating people on a huge scale. Starting the Clean Health Institute in 2008, Daine has been in business for nearly 20 years, and today we're going to get him on to get buckets of value for you guys there, talking about health, supplementation, business, lifestyle, and everything in between. Can't wait to show you guys this episode here, so tune in shortly. It's about to drop. All right, guys, you got Will here, owner of Primabolics Nutrition, with the Primabolics podcast. Today we're talking to Daine McDonald, founder of Clean Health Institute from back in 2008. Mate, you've been in the industry for over 20 years, and today we're getting you on because you have buckets of value around business, lifestyle, family, man, also about some technological innovations you've been working with recently. There's heaps of areas we can explore today. So first and foremost, thanks for making time, though, mate. Even in a sling, you've managed to come into the studio with us.
Mate. Yep.
I really appreciate it.
It's actually just a prop. It's not real. I've done nothing. I'm just doing it for the pity party.
It is. We're going to get some sympathy likes right now from this one.
Yeah.
Mate, Daine, I'd like to crack in, I suppose, with a bit of a, for those who've been living under a rock and haven't heard of Clean Health Institute, haven't seen the events or seminars or things you've been doing in the industry, could you just give them a real quick Hawkeye summary of, I suppose, where we are today? And then I'll dive into the backstory a bit more later on. But I'd love to know specifically what today people would know you best for if they just cross this podcast.
Yeah, so obviously, look, Clean Health Group, we are the fourth largest health, fitness, and nutrition education provider in the planet. And we are the largest non-PE backed group of education companies out there. So basically, we own the Clean Health brand, we own the Australian Institute of Fitness brand, we own the Vast Fitness Academy brand, we own the Breath Room brand. We pretty much cover all the verticals of health and fitness. So whether it's like you want to get qualified as a personal trainer, get qualified as a nutritionist, get qualified as a massage therapist. You can also now, we've launched a new accreditation in breathwork. So like my whole thing is like, these are all kind of practices and things that I'm passionate about, that a lot of us that have come up in health and fitness are passionate about. Why not bring them all into one kind of bucket? Where basically you can come in, get qualified, do continuing education. We do the live events as well. And like right now we're working on kind of expanding into Pilates and yoga too at that top of funnel point. But yeah, man, just like here to serve our industry, here to kind of provide people with evidence-based education, but also practical stuff. I think you know that from your background. It's like you can have all of the science of the supplements here, right? But like, how do you, like, what's the practical application of that? How is this going to help me look and feel on a day-to-day basis? And then how can I coach that in as I could own a supplement store, I could be a nutritionist. So just giving them the practicality behind the science.
I love that, Meg. And I think the good thing is when you say it was passion-led with each partner, it's expanded over time as you've evolved. I found the same with mine. We started back in 2015, so a few years after you guys, but we're going up to 10 years in August now. And it was about, I suppose, as my interest grew, to go from starting with more performance-based stuff, as a lot of trainers do, and then and morphs through with longevity, morphs through with looking at hormones, stress, looking at cortisol, estrogen, sleep, and you start realizing all the things that fall under that umbrella of health that are actually the big levers, right?
100%.
And I'd like to know for you, so you started with Clean Health Institute, went around, personal training was the large sort of area when initially. Now, was that based, I suppose, you spent nearly 2 decades doing training and on the floor as well yourself. So was that where that sort of originated from? We went from training people face to face and decided, hey, look, this industry needs to be leveled up. What was the thought process from
Look, I mean, I started in 2002. Started as a PT, did my PT quals, did my nutrition quals, so got that dual accreditation. And so I was always looking at stuff from, like, when a client would come into me, the first thing I'm going to assess is their lifestyle. Right? Their sleep, their stress, their blood markers, and all this type of information. From there, I would then build out the lifestyle and nutrition plan, right? Because as you know, what you're doing for the other 23 hours outside of the gym is what's going to give you the most results.
Yes.
And then once we'd assess those two things and come up with a specific protocol, then we get into training. And so, like, my philosophy came from one application on me, but kind of linking into what you said about how I kind of went from like doing the PT thing to opening a gym, to opening gyms, and then getting into education. Because in essence, Clean Health today, or Clean Health Group, is the 5th iteration or business model. Actually, it's the 6th iteration or business model under the same brand. Right? So it's like, a lot of people are like, wow, you've had the brand for 17 years. Like, yeah, because we've constantly pivoted and evolved. And sometimes I think when you start in business, you've got an idea or a concept, but the delivery mechanism for that business model isn't congruent with your goals and mission, right? Because when I was a PT, I was restricted by time, right? 1-to-1. I went from being a PT to having PTs work with me. So now my philosophies could go out through my 12 or 13 initial PTs to more people. It then went from one into a gym where we would have members come into the gym. So all of a sudden, those principles and philosophies were going out to many.
Yep.
From there, it went from, other people in the industry, because like I'd built myself up by 2009 where 30-40% of my clients were PTs. And so I would get questions from them like, how are you getting these results, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I actually developed our first education programs in 2010. And then in like 2011, I started kind of getting a lot more interest from other trainers. People were traveling in from interstate. I actually had some people travel from overseas to come and learn from me. And I was like, well, okay, I'm really passionate about this, but as the kind of business journey kind of, evolved and went from one gym to multiple gyms, I found myself being more passionate about actually educating. And by that time it had been, 12 or 13 years under the bar of being a PT.
Yes.
And so it just kind of evolved from that into now I'm going to go into workshops and, events. And then it went from that, in 2018 to, okay, why don't we digitize this and start going online? And then we'd already kind of been going online quite substantially. And then 2020 came with COVID.
Yep.
And it's just like, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to shut down the gym, going to shut down the online coaching business, going to shut down our events business and just go all in on education and on online education in particular. And, the last kind of 5 years from that, we've gone from strength to strength. And then 2023, I was like, you know what? Well, maybe we can expand this further. So I started buying up different industry competitors and kind of here we are today.
And I think a lot of people saw that content last year where there was a lot of acquisitions happening and there was a lot of energy around you guys and you were really, and like there was always energy around you guys. You're bringing out some of the biggest names in the industry. We're at the Oz Fitness Expo last year where I met your lovely wife Lauren down there. And she had Lane Norton on the stand and you guys had some really, James Smiths and the Hattie Boyles. And you've had some really big people involved and around clean health with some great reputations. But seeing that scaling from the single site right through, and that, I suppose the shining light I see there, and even in looking in your backstory, seeing that early on you're investing in self-education from like as early as the early 2000s.
Well, that's probably a point that I missed on, like, the big kind of the rate limiter for my scale at each stage has been information, right? So i.e., knowing how to solve a problem, knowing how to set up a sales funnel, knowing how to do paid advertising, knowing how to be a better leader, knowing how to project manage things within my business. So I've always, like how I went from that trainer in 2002 to 10 years later being the highest paid trainer in Australia and having people from around the world wanting to travel and learn from me was because during that window, I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into courses, into personal development, into workshops. I mean, I just came from a meeting right now with my mentor who's based here in Newcastle. He's one of Tony Robbins' business partners, done a lot of stuff with him over the years. So like, I practice what I preach, right? The difference is now, like my mentorship, costs 6 figures plus per annum.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you as you kind of move, I don't like using the word move up the food chain, but as you, like, we've all got a mission or a goal or something in life. And some of us are more clear on that than others. But the bigger the mission, the bigger the intention, there are roadblocks along the journey that are going to stop you from reaching it. And there's always a problem. There's always a person that has experienced that problem before you. Does that make sense?
Yes,
so if you can seek them out and get guidance from them, when you get to that roadblock, it's going to reduce the time it takes to bust through it. It's going to reduce the stress that it takes to bust through it. So I have not been without a mentor or development literally my entire adult life.
Wow.
20 plus straight years, there's always been someone that I've been paying for advice and going to, and it's changed. Like as I've grown my business and grown my brand, the people that I seek out is different. And it's also changed from, initially being more business focused, or initially actually it was more subject matter expertise, right? Like becoming the best practitioner, to then business to now it's, and then from business to more personal development. Whereas now it's a blend of both. Now I have someone that can kind of help from a personal development standpoint to be a better husband, to be a better father, to be a better leader, better entrepreneur. But then I've also got someone that can commercially give me guidance on making good decisions within my business.
Massive. And there's a few things we'll drill in each of those parts because there's a lot of value in each. The mentoring part and the self-education piece, I think, gets overlooked. And also you said you were your own handbrake at different tiers of business.
Yeah, 100%.
And 1,000,000%. A lot of times early on it might be, if someone was lucky enough to have, say, the business background early on, then that won't be their handbrake, but it might be the personal work. Having to do so, there might be some blockages things in their own behavioral they need to address first to get to the next level, because you'll see it, and especially once you start employing staff and other people.
I see it right now. We've just had one of our team members that is obviously moving on, and one of their rate limiters has been they're amazing at business, but from a personal development side, they need to evolve in that space, and they're finding that quite hard to do. And so I see that with a lot of kind of entrepreneurs or even intrapreneurs. It's like, it's not their skill at business that's limiting them. It's the way they react to situations. It's the way they communicate with other people. It's the habits. I was literally just speaking with my mentor there about James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits.
Yes.
Right? It's like, it's your fucking habits that build the outcome, nothing more. So if you wake up every day and you go straight into a flight or fight situation, if you don't take time to mentor and develop people, if you don't take time to improve yourself, then how the fuck are you meant to reach your mission, your goal? You've got to build daily habits, small wins, small ticks on the board to kind of help you get there.
I think that's massive in the areas, and that has a beautiful parallel to, because I agree in business, you're right. You need to, if you want to try and take someone to the moon, if you've got a North Star, you want a whole team to march towards, you've got to be very, very clear on what that is. And that clarity can be confronting for people, because you have to drill down a number of layers and go from and the scale obviously changes with you. So you said before, you go from different layers and go from single site to multi to mentoring lots of people to large teams to a portfolio. You've got, one staff to 5 to 10 to 50 and so on. Each one of those demands a different degree of clarity, and also with yourself, I suppose when you say habits, that's a perfect one, because the parallel that then draws to the everyday person listening to this who might be going, look, I'm still in the early stages of that. I'm a face-to-face PT. There's great parallels there.
I'll give you an example like habits. So in 2015, I lost about $2.5 million in my gym businesses because I'd taken my eye off the ball. I wasn't being a clear and concise enough leader, and my management team wasn't executing for me the way they could have because of my drawbacks, right? And then there were some other things that we were going through. And so long story short, I ended up losing millions of dollars, liquidating that business. And at the time when that happened, it was my first loss in life, like from a business standpoint. And it was a massive slap to the ego. I literally reacted to that from a place of anger, frustration, lashing out on other people. You did it, blah, blah, blah. It was your fault, blah, blah, blah. And so I was habitually programmed and trained to react to it from a place of stress. If I look at over the last year, we've acquired, about 5 or 6 different companies and started up another 2. One of those businesses I've actually lost $1.5 million on over the last 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, but my approach with it now, and you could probably even just see in my face, it's like, cool. That's like, with great risk sometimes comes great risk. But not just that. I choose to react to this differently, saying, you know what, I chose to do that. That's my responsibility, and basically dealing with it from a place of, okay, well, now I'm not going to react to that. I'm just going to deal with it, come up with some solutions to kind of, fix that problem rather than kind of react to it and be in a place of stress or fight or flight. I'm actually completely accepting of it.
That's a massive lesson, mate. I think, and the failures, if you can reframe each one as a lesson, you'll be able to make peace with it a lot easier. Right?
And that's the thing. I was actually even my wife said to me, she's like, I'm really proud of, she's like, compared to the last time you lost millions in a business thing,
This time, I love that. It's becoming a repetition now. Time around.
But the difference now, like last time when I'd lost it was all in the main thing. This time it's siloed. This time it doesn't bleed out other things. So it's like, cool, but it's all context. Like, in January I did $1 million in profit plus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like.
It is. And it's fun, man. But it's relatable to the average because the principles are the same, right? Whether the business does $1 million a year, $1 million a month, or whether it's doing, $5,000 a month, it doesn't matter. The principles are always very much there. The personal limitations, the ability to build habits that will support you, being able to approach that from a certain place of composure. Because I think there's a lot.
It's composure. And that's, I think, one of the things that I've had to learn, because I get a lot of people like, oh, wow, you've gone from 6 to 7 to multi-7 to 8 to multi-8, blah, blah, blah. Like, how have you done that? And I'm like, honestly, outside of skill stacking, the number one thing that has helped me kind of ascend the ladder is I'm just a better leader. Right? Because I think if you're growing a business to a certain, especially at rapid scale, right? You talk about acquisitions and whatnot. It's almost like being in a wartime environment, right? So if you're in a wartime environment where people are shooting you and stuff like that, do you want a leader that is going to look at that and say, go like this? Cool, that was a bullet. Or do you want someone that's going to be fucking in there, crying? You know what I mean? Like you need to, I think as you go through the layers of leadership and entrepreneurism is almost the best playground to kind of test this thesis and to go through it
Isn't it just?
you need to remain cool under pressure, right? So you can still have the passion and the fire and fucking rah, rah, rah.
You gotta temper
but
it,
like
though.
when shit's hitting the fan, when you're losing $1.5 million in 4 months, like how are you reacting to that?
It is the best environment for it, is it? Because you don't get an opportunity in any other part of your life really to play high stakes poker, but also have to learn massive lessons at the same time. And I know exactly what you mean by scaling. Anyone listening to this that's got a business yourself that's looking at trying to grow, or who isn't going through growing pains now, people think it's because of socials. It's the glamour of growth, right? But it's not. It's the most stressful. It puts the most strain on anything is scaling and growing. We doubled every year for 9 consecutive years, and it nearly killed me, right? Like the stress of that, because especially if your growth outstrips your gross profit and so on.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at like from a business perspective, it's all great on socials to be looking at like we're doubling, but people don't see the back end and how much that demands of you and how much then you have to be. And leadership then comes in a big way because you've got to keep a very clear picture of what direction you want it to go and what impact you're trying to create, right? So when with pushing that into, I suppose, part of the portfolio now, but clean health still being the umbrella, right? Let's look at, I suppose, what pushed you into specifically personal training first and what impact you were trying to make when you first started that? Because we went through early on, you invested in self-education, went to education, then became very clearly the big passion piece. And that's the reason I'm just going back there is because as a brand, that's become my massive passion piece. Is I've realized that the more people we can educate and get people out there about how their body works, how their hormones work, how to remove handbrakes, that's where we've seen the biggest changes in people's lives, right? And you've identified the education piece as a passion way back when, and back in 08, 09, 10. I want to see though where that led you. So when you first started, that's right. When we first started with Clean Health, what was the impact you were trying to make initially? Talking about clarity,
Literally,
vision, and so on.
it was just helping people, get in shape and be healthy and reap the benefits of being in shape. Right? As I was, it was all about training, nutrition, sleeping well, being energetic, being able to lift what I want, be strong and all that type of stuff. So it was literally just passing that on. And then I think as I saw the change in people from that, and, I think anyone, if you provide someone with information or insight and they have a positive outcome from it, it makes you feel good, right?
Yes.
Especially when you're working as a coach and the change is they're depressed, sick, blah, blah, blah. Now they're healthy and happy and can be present with their kids. Or they're an amateur athlete who's now a professional athlete. Or they're a professional athlete at the cusp who's now, winning a medal at the Olympics or whatever that is. That's what I that's why I initially got into it. But I realized as I grew in my confidence, because I think when you're 19, 20, 21, 22, if you're 19, 20, you listen to this right now and you're like, cool, this guy's done this and blah, 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 got all these companies. That's so far away from where you're currently at, your current state.
Yeah, state. Yeah, good operative word, state.
Your current state. So for me, when I started as a PT, I was not a CEO. I was not a chairman. You could not put me in a boardroom with hedge funds and me be able to hold my own, right? Because I had no time under the bar of business, right? So that whole process of, as at each stage, each month, each year, each result, each new revenue number, each new client transformation, I built momentum, right? I tell a story. It took me 15 years to get to 8 figures, right? But since I've gotten to that, within a year, we're doing 8 figures of profit.
Now let's hold there for 1 second because that needs to be drawn down on, right? So
drill into that shit.
It
15 years.
15 years to hit 8 figures. Now everyone needs, because now it's become glorified, the rapid, hey, I now make 100K a month through my online business and I do it. Mate, any overnight success takes a decade minimum to do, right? And when you see things that have got a true legacy to them, that are sustainable, large companies that are thriving and doing and driving innovation and are out there making impact, more often than not, the founder spent 10 years plus in the trenches, having a really shit time getting there, learning, fumbling, failing, growing, overcoming, adapting, changing identities constantly. So 15 years to 8 figures, man, that's a lesson that we need to hear more and more now, because it's all about it's the overnight success that people want, because Instagram has compressed the time horizon that we view.
And you can do it quicker today. Again, I built my business pre-social.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I built it pre-social. But one of the things that I would say with that 15 years to 8 figure statement, for me, my initial passion for helping others was expressed through a one-to-one environment. So the business model was capped. So me being a one-to-one PT, I capped out at about 500 grand per annum. That's a lot for a one-to-one PT that's doing 90% of their business in person back in 2010.
Huge, especially 2010 versus now, like pre-inflation numbers. That's massive.
Exactly right. So, I was capped. I'm then like, okay, well, how can I go from that into having people under me servicing sessions? I had 12 coaches working for me through Fitness First and Anytime Fitness. And that next year we got up to about 1.8 million, right? Wow. But my profit only jumped to 50.
Another one we're going to drill down on.
Right.
So the inevitable growth of scale, so revenue increases, profit decreases. And it takes a while for the J curve, right? Where we see in economics, we talk about how we're going, we usually have to scale. We have to eat profit to afford to buy our growth, infrastructure, staffing, build. And we go down in our actual profitability despite revenue increasing. Get to our point where we've learned the skills, we've acquired the operation ability, we've become a better operator as a whole. We trim out some overheads and expenses before we come out the other side. But that can be several years to buy your seat at the table of the scale you're trying to achieve. So you've tripled revenue, but expenses-wise, profit's probably less than the original.
No, it went up, but only went up by 250. So even though I'd literally, on that 500 grand that I was making initially, like, because it was me servicing it, it was on like 550 of revenue or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was super high margin, but all of a sudden I brought team in. Now I got that business up. I'm like, well, I can continue trying to scale this, but at the time I'm like, I need to put this in my own brand in a gym. Right. So I went from that, did the whole gym thing, got that up where I had one site doing over 4 million a year. At that time, I started doing about 1.5 million profit. I'm like, okay, great. So now I've tripled my profit, but I've literally had to 8x the revenue.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, well, the natural path now is if I want to go the next level of scale is to do more than one site. But then going to a second and third site in a brick and mortar business, just much like a supplement store, right?
Yep.
There's lease, there's overheads, there's plant equipment, there's all this type of stuff. So I found by the time I went to 3 sites, I was not focusing on all of them at the same. Hence my original site started losing money.
Yep.
And so even though I had another site making me money and then the other site, I ended up taking the ball off and exiting that as well. Like, I found that kind of third business model for me was probably the hardest, but also the one where I knew that to go to 8 figures in that, it was going to be quite a long slog. And this was again back in 2013, 2014. It wasn't a franchise, right? Wow. So there wasn't bank finance and stuff like that. You were basically bootstrapping it, right? 100%. And so then from there, I went into events, and it was only really when I went into online education and the first product that we released, we did 300 grand in 1 week on it, on a fucking ebook. I was like, okay, now literally 11 years into this, now I have a business model that can actually get me to that 8 figures, blah, 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 but with far less overhead, far less stress, and that 8 figures is going to be on a much higher margin. Right. And then obviously from there, we continued to grow that, had a bit of a up during COVID, came back down and then restabilized, got it back to pre-COVID levels. And I'm like, cool, I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, I want to positively impact and educate no less than 1 million people in the health and fitness spaces. Wow. How can I do that? Wow. I can keep growing organically or I can grow inorganically. And that's where M&A came in.
Right. That's when that began. Okay, I was interested in that thought process, and I love you. Yeah. We said it there because I can tell that you've journaled it 1 million times when you said, because you said it casually in passing, going, "We're going back to 1 million people this year," and then we went through.
It's programmed. I fucking programmed.
It's in you, right? I can see it. So, but when people are listening to that, trying to impact 1 million people, right, and have a positive impact on 1 million people,
think about it. It's actually positively educate and certify no less than 1 million, because those 1 million will positively impact 1 billion.
Whew.
Right?
That's some big ones. That's a big goal. I love that. I love that.
Because it's the 1 million fitness professionals that between them doing an average of 20 clients each per annum or 30 clients per annum. If you've got 1 million of them doing 20, 30 clients per annum, all of a sudden, within 5 years, you've got 1 billion plus people that are using Clean Health Group, nutrition, massage, Pilates, yoga, and personal training methodologies to improve their life. Right?
Isn't that a goal worth having? That's a really great scope of vision you don't see very often, and I love seeing that because it allows you, as you grow at each different tier, it allows you your sort of, I suppose, it gives you a glimpse of what the next mountain might look like, right?
That's the thing I was saying, that when I initially started, I wasn't thinking like that.
No,
I wasn't thinking like that because my current state was so far away from that state. Like Daine now as a leader, Daine now as a business person has a shot at that, right? Daine then had no shot at that unless he's skill stacked.
Gotcha.
Unless he's skill stacked. And then through learning information, applied it. Because that's the big thing. There's a lot of people that do courses and mentors, they don't fucking apply it.
The application piece.
Go and apply it. And you know what? To the point, apply it for 15 years. Apply it for 15 fucking years.
This is the best lesson ever because I love it when people extend the goddamn time horizon. I mean, Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot where it's the repetitions, it's usually 10x what you think it is. And then time horizon is usually that time longer as well. But consistently stacking wins, and in this case, skill sets. And I'll ask in a second which ones in particular you think would be the highest leverage for like the, because a lot of the audience will be retailers, guys who have got their own single site, maybe multiple sites. It will be personal trainers and coaches who may have scaled to the point where they might even have coaches under them, but a lot of them are owner operators too. So I'll ask you skills you will stack and which ones you think are going to be the highest leverage for those sort of small to medium owner operators later on. But I mean, I'm really, really intrigued by just the doing that for such a long period where we can start building consistency in that, and stacking the wins has a very, very nice compounding effect that you don't see. Unfortunately, it's a bit cruel, but you don't often see that in the early years of business too much. Until you've been in it long enough where I'm starting to see it now in year 10. And it's, but like you said before, where you can see your revenue scale exponentially. You start seeing your successes almost like goodwill in the marketplace starts snowballing. It starts building its momentum. But unfortunately, a lot of people tap out just before they get to that real critical point where it goes from like, it sucks.
Trust me, I've been there so many times, like especially that first time I lost all that money. I was ready to throw in the towel. And I remember being out the front of my house and saying to my wife, I'm fucking done. Like I'm done with clean health. I'm done with this. I'm just going to go back. And I said it to her, I'm going to go back and just work as a PT. And I remember her grabbing me by the face. She's like, no, you fucking aren't. That is not you. That is not your dream. Stop with the pity party. Like, I love you, but get the fuck back up. And that was what I needed to hear.
I love that.
Right? That's what I need to hear. I mean, you met my wife.
Yeah,
she's pretty direct.
And
that's what I needed to hear. And so, but imagine, had I given up during my first failure, I wouldn't be talking here about positively impacting 1 billion souls.
God no. And
10 years later.
Well, none of it would, mate. Even if you look at a recent podcast, Diary of CEO, Tony Robbins was on there, right? Talking of Tony. And you saw him talking about his early failures or in his case, even his early point where he was doing a live seminar for only 125 people. Now, at that point, for him, that was the biggest thing he'd ever done, right? Yeah. And then he went out, and I think it was a David Bowie concert potentially afterwards, and his friend was ringing him saying, look, you have to go to this thing just to see how crazy an event can be with this much energy and impacting this many people. And he went to a stadium with, I think it was 60,000 people or something. And he ended up beating himself up going, oh God, I'm only doing, he was on cloud 9 going, I've just done 125, walked in there, and comparison being the thief of joy, which we see on socials more and more now, going, oh God, here's this guy here just killing it with, a full stacked stadium, right? And I think sometimes it's really powerful for people to give us a bit of perspective and lens. And upon meeting Lauren, having a partner in your corner who can be that cheerleader for you when you're down there, also then snap you back into reality and go, hey, you know what you're meant for, or this is your mission. I know you've got more in you than being that. In this case, going back to PTing, go get it, right? Yeah. And I think you've done a really good job of portraying especially a lot of your behind the scenes stuff lately with you and your wife and your family as well, taking a lot of these ventures on, because not many people today we've been talking about almost purely business until now, but you're doing this with a very large family, and that's where we first met. Was funny enough, mate, at a kids' playground centre, right?
I was saying that to my mate before, Paul.
It's wild that we met. Literally just like I'm on a slippery slide. And I look over, and it's really funny. But you've done this as well with that, so I'm sure there's with the personal workings as well, man. I love that partnership you guys have got with you and Lauren, how you guys have really tackled this together as a team, right? So did that take time for that for you guys to learn the dance of that, and where
100%. And it was more me. It was more me as the egotistical entrepreneur dude, right? That basically I can do all this myself. I don't need anyone's help, and blah blah blah. And it was also, I just think, part of letting go, because I think a lot of founders and entrepreneurs think that they can do everything better than everyone. And in some cases that might be the case, but the reality is to get any level of scale or impact, it's not a one-man band.
Agreed.
You need a team and a tribe behind you. I talk about this in that in the abundance pyramid, which is a concept that I've recently come about, which is like, step 2 of the abundance pyramid is like tribe. Who is the tribe supporting you towards your North Star, your mission, right? And, a perfect example of this is just recently looking at Trump, right? Trump won the election because he surrounded himself with a tribe of people, Musk, Rogan, RFK, all that type of stuff that aligned with his mission. And then together they've created this powerful force that has propelled him back to the White House, right? Arguably, and I don't think, had he not built that coalition, that collaboration,
wouldn't happen,
and trusted people and had transformative instead of transactional relationships with people, it wouldn't have happened. And so I think when I started to look at my relationship, like, you know, in my case, a woman that is my ride or die, that's there for me in everything. It's like we're very good at getting clear on who does what, personally and professionally, and just leaving each other to play to their strengths. Like today's a perfect example of that. She's doing some stuff, you know, with our COO. You know, actually just then on the way here, she called me to tell me that she has to go down to the hospital in Sydney out of nowhere because some of the blood test results on our son have come back and don't look good whatsoever. So they've rushed him down into emergency.
Oh shit.
You know, so yeah, to give you an example, calm under pressure.
Composure. I was going to say, yeah, yes.
Right? Like at the end of the day, like, yes, emotionally when I heard that, that's like, oh, fuck, fear, anxiety, this, that. But I'm like, you know what? It's cool. My wife's there. She's fucking got it.
Wow. That's
you know
powerful.
what I mean?
That's
you go down, do that, baby. I'll go do me. And then we'll reconnect this afternoon, this evening. And, you know, it'll be good.
Composure is the massive one because I struggled a lot early on.
Don't get me wrong, I do lose my composure. Like, yesterday, my daughter was climbing on a thing and I fucking lost my composure. But, you know.
Practice makes perfect, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Practice makes perfect with it. But I think there's a lot to be said there because unfortunately, business and the human experience aren't always at ends with logic in that I suppose, unfortunately, the emotive, natural response you might have to a given situation is almost always your biggest enemy to you navigating that well. And I say that with, I suppose, and I see this quite often when I see people scaling from when it was, in my example, I started the business out of the back of a car, right? It was literally going from store to store, doing seminars out of the back of my car and just had boxes of product in the back of the car, would go and just do a talk at a local gym with 20 people and just build it from like literally that for like 7 years, right? To go. And it was just you do your own invoicing, you drive back the few hours to your warehouse, you go grab the stock, deliver the stock, do the talking, jump on Insta, do the marketing, just bootstrap everything, right? And you see that probably the one advantage was I think I was probably so constantly just overwhelmed that I almost was devoid of the emotional aspect of it, which was actually an advantage in the early years. But then later on, you do the work and you realize, oh, okay, great, I can do this from a different place, right?
We'll do it from a place where you're actually being present and not just following the process like a robot. So that you can actually enjoy the process. Because I think initially when we do it, we're just all bang, 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 do, work, grind, right? But like you get to the end of the week and like, have you actually even sat in the moment and experienced the experience that you're going through? You know, have you experienced any gratitude or joy or just like fuck pat on the back for yourself? And I think that's the biggest thing for most people that are, you know, high achievers is to do that. You know, and I was the same, like my first 10 years of my career, 12, 13 years really was just like fucking all that, all work, all blah, blah, blah. It was only when I started to actually search inwards that I guess business and life really started to, I guess, unravel for me. And, you know, you get reminded that life is working for you. You know?
I like when you said the, unraveling. It's a funny coincidence timing. I really do notice that I suppose the linchpin is always ourselves, and I'm very fortunate now. When you said before, one point you brought up earlier was that it takes a tribe, right, to get to a certain place, and I'm very fortunate to have a team who are phenomenal. They're absolute workhorses, and a lot of them they're amazing individuals, and all of them are out there, like as we speak, in different states right now, putting the mission out there and helping other retailers understand what we're trying to do and how to do that, and other customers, and I learned that lesson in a very humbling way, watching the powers of scale, and when you have a team behind you, because the first few years are so lonely, and it's all that stress and burden is on you, and it is one man band, and we do the default setting of, hey, I'm independent, hey, I'll take this on my shoulders, I'll carry this burden, that's fine. But one of the biggest things you need to unlock is, I suppose, rethinking that thought process. I have to do everything. I can do it better. I'll do it all myself. The independence piece, and then it becomes more about how to manage the team to get the best outcomes for them and supporting them, always being of service to them. It's like you're there to try and make them shine, so those guys can go out and hook in, and then give them the tools they need, because they're the ones ultimately that can do 3x what one person can sustainably. So sustainable, and that brings that to that point, the sustainability piece. What does it look like now? Because you said the first 10, 15 years was the hustle grind, right? Has there been a change since? When did, I suppose, how do you find that now? You've got a family, you've got a lot of young children as well. How have you found a place for the portfolio and business you and partner, Daine, as well, the different versions of yourselves, and same with Laura as well? What's that look like now for you in terms of the whatever balance looks like at this point in the game?
Yeah, I'd say there's like, and it was really good. I read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell
Great
recently. Book. Yeah. And he talks about the four kind of quadrants, right, of time. You've got tasks and things that you can do in your life that you can replace. You've got tasks and things that you do that in your life that you can delegate.
Yes.
You've then got things that you can invest into, and then you've got things that what he'd referred to as production. I actually prefer to look at that as like your genius zone, right? So if I look at tasks like, and I'm going to answer your question, how my life looks right now is initially as a founder, entrepreneur, and someone going from 0 to 6 or even 6 up to 7 figures. Majority of your time is spent doing shit, right? It's spent doing admin. It's spent doing booking phone calls. It's spent it's spent doing marketing for your brand or whatever it is, right? Now, technically, they're all tasks. It's spent doing laundry. Yeah. It's spent making food. They're all things that you could pay someone to replace, but initially you don't have the capital to do that, right? So I have very few things in my life that are in that phase right now that I do, right?
Gotcha. Yep.
The second one is you go into delegation, right? So they're things that you could replace, but you need some time to train them up. Like going and buying groceries or taking stuff to the dry cleaner, you don't need training for that. Right?
You're good.
Making a bed, you don't need to train for that. The delegation is stuff that, might be, I need to send an email to a customer, giving them 3 kind of options, or it could be, I need to communicate with the accountant on the monthly, quarterly BAS, or whatever it is. There's stuff that might require a bit of training, an SOP, a playbook, a 1 hour of your time developing that person that's in that replacement category right now to be able to delegate to them. So again, there's not much stuff I do there, and anything, I'm very big on like any process in my business. I'm doing a Loom video. I'm taking that, filtering it into ChatGPT. I'm creating a written Word document playbook to go with that, which is about 80% of what I need it to be, and then I'll tweak it up with 100%. So any task in my business that I don't want to fucking do anymore, which I'll get to, that's my process, right? So that I just create a system, because at the end of the day, systems scale, not you. Right? A system will scale your business, especially when you start going from 1 to 3. Systems do matter. But more importantly, you can pretty much get to 8 figures just like a bulldozer with not much systems. But to go from 8 to multi and then start going up towards 40 and 50, which is where we're at now with the business. And again, we're online, so the margins are 50% on that. So you do the math. Right?
Phenomenal place.
So it's the system. But once we come out of the delegation, we go into investment. So majority of my time these days literally is either spent in the investment quadrant or genius zone quadrant. And so investment is basically anything that I'm doing that is going to basically decrease my skill gaps, right? My skill gaps as a leader. It could be reading, right? Every day I read for no less than an hour a day, right? And I've got a rule. If I pick up a book and within 5 minutes I'm not enthralled with it, I put it down. Right? Hands up. If you ever got a book and you're reading it for 5-10 minutes, you're like, I think I'm supposed to read this because it was recommended, but I should read this, but it's not. And I'm like, well, if it's not fucking resonating with you, then put it down because you're wasting your time. Because ultimately it comes into the genius zone. And the genius zone is basically anything that you're doing right now that you wake up with a fucking boner for in the morning, that you're passionate about, that gets you fired up. That's where you should be going, because ultimately people see passion, and when people see passion, they tend to be more drawn to it. And when people are drawn towards it, they're more likely to look to you for advice on the problem that you're solving, right? So like, for example, right now, what do I love doing from a genius zone, right? I love creating stuff, doing podcasts. I love creating presentations, courses. I like creating high-level strategic stuff for my business, or high-level kind of frameworks for my leadership team and stuff like that. Stuff where I know that I will take this content or take the playbooks that I've done in my business, and then they're going to, they're like compounding interest. They might not give me cash at bank right now, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months, 12 months from now, they will. Right. So my time is literally spent in the stuff that I get a boner for and that I'm fucking great at. And then it's also spent in getting better at those things and or, learning more about myself or whatever it is. And by the way, up there, it could also be like, okay, an investment is investment into my soul. That's dinner night with my wife.
Massively important.
Right. That's, spending the beginning of 30 minutes of the day outside meditating with my daughter. Right. That's being there at gymnastics to watch my kids. Like, that's an investment into my soul, into my heart, into me as a father and as a husband. So it's not just all about business. So I'm like, whether it's on the home front, like with dry cleaning, we have a nanny, with meals, we have a cook, and again, when I started, didn't have all this shit.
No.
But I think for anyone listening right now, it's like, write down a list of all of the stuff that you're passionate about. And then conversely with that, the stuff that you're great at, and whether you journal on it, visualize or whatnot on it, like start to channel your North Star towards that. Because you picked up on the fact that I referred to 1 million plus PTs. Every decision I make in the business and life comes back to, in essence, first principles. What's the North Star?
I could tell it's subconscious for you, which means it's been done with such repetitious behavior that you've got that ingrained in you now, right? And I can see that's why I was curious about when you talk about habits and what the morning looks like. I'm glad you touched on that, doing meditation with the kids and setting yourself up for it. And then you've mentioned state, another thing Tony loves, right? And looking at where you're coming at the day from, because I think what we initially do, we said before, in the smaller phase, we feel like we have to do everything, and because the resources aren't there, we do have to do everything for a period of time until we can get the capital to bring staff in and so on. Yeah. But then you get to a point where we're talking about in that book, I believe it was automate, delegate, eliminate. And it's either, right, and it's a great exercise. Right, it was write down your daily laundry list of tasks, everything you do in a day, and then go there with a pink, green, or orange pen and go automate, delegate, eliminate, and it's amazing how much you cut out, right? But it's such a amazing thing to go down to things where you said there, just investing in the personal time and how much that pays dividends outwardly. Because I've spent so many years in just chronic burnout building this business, right, where you are just constantly doing 80-hour weeks, driving, seminar, talk, in-store, get out, content, jump out, invoice, marketing, go, crap, phone call, back in, another store, oh, hey, go, and that for 10 years, right? And when you live in that burnout, though, and you're not filling any cups or doing anything where you actually... You've got no capacity to expand your vision. You've got no capacity to actually lead people because you're just in Groundhog Day, right? You're just in survival mode. And I spent so much time talking about the nervous system and about how people, I suppose, have so many issues with living in overwhelm and stress. And you said before, the state you're in, the Daine you were before, you weren't in the state to access the point now where you have the presence of mind to go, hey, I want to impact 1 million people, which causes 1 billion. You weren't there. You couldn't access that state at all. But it's
been a process. And I'll actually, the process that I use, because a lot of people ask, what is your route? And this is actually the first time I'm sharing this process outside of any content that I've done, like on a podcast, right?
Yeah, wow.
So I don't know if you saw it, it's a concept I framed called the abundance pyramid.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, this abundance pyramid. So please go in.
Yeah, so basically it's my 7-step framework for life. So it's like on step 1 is self. Right? So what do you want your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body to look like on a day-to-day? So what translate that? When I wake up every day, how do I feel? So close your eyes. How do I feel? What do I look like? How do I engage with my wife? How do I engage with my team? What am I doing on a day-to-day to improve self? Right? That's step 1. Because at the end of the day, if I don't improve self, how the fuck am I meant to be the billion-dollar entrepreneur? How am I meant to be, the husband of 7? The father of 7.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How am I meant to do all these things? So step 1 is self. Step 2 is tribe. So who are the people professionally and personally that are supporting you on your overarching vision in life, right? So that could be your networks, that could be your friends, that could be your extended family, etc. Who are the people, non-family members, non-direct family members that are supporting you on that, your tribe? We spoke about that before with Trump, right? Step 3 is your business, right? Which actually ultimately comes back to your wealth. So it could be the business that you're working in, right? As an employee earning 100 grand or whatever it is. It could also be the business that you own, because at the end of the day, your wealth, and people ask me this a lot, what does money mean to you? Money means choice, right? If I receive more money in my life, I have more choice to do what I want. Right? So that third section there, wealth, the material, is critically important. Now, those first 3 phases, self, people, and money, is where most entrepreneurs spend the first 10 years of their life. Right? They spend it in a place of physical, mental, maybe a bit of emotional, more for women, less for us dudes.
Yep.
They spend it on the team, and they spend it on the people, the network, stuff like that, and they spend it on making money. Right?
Agreed.
What changed for me was layer 4, which was in essence love, heart, right? So step 4 is basically about your spiritual connection, really, and your heart. And so for me, that was unconditional love. That was me experiencing unconditional love with my wife for the first time, and realizing that all 3 of those things that I'd been working on mean fuck all unless I'm experiencing that feeling, right? And then what I found is when I activated that frequency, that feeling, that emotion, that's when layer 5 family came in, right? So it's like, I've built all this up. I've now activated myself emotionally. I feel, I see, I I love someone without judgment, without any, like, I love them in every single cell of my body. What type of life do I want to create for her, for us, and our family, which is stage 5? And I'm talking about immediate family. So in that place, like, what does my relationship actually look like with my kids? Right? What does my relationship look like with my wife? You know, are we constantly fighting, or are we constantly looking at each other in the eye and having that, you know, getting lost in each other's kind of arms kind of experience? Do my kids want to sit down with me at night? Or do they want to go and do their own thing? Right? That's layer 5. Layer 6 then, layer 6 is more about the legacy that you want to leave. And so for that legacy could be, you know, it could be you want to create a life and a level of wealth for your family, for your team, or whatever. But it's like, once you've gone through those stages, what legacy that you want to leave? And all 6 of those things get reverse engineered off the top point, which is, what is your fucking mission?
Beautifully executed.
Right? What is your
Wow.
mission in life? Right? And so, like, my mission is to positively impact no less than 1 billion souls by the time I've left this planet. I know that Clean Health Group right now is a vehicle for that. It's stage 3, right? Because it's a vehicle for that. But obviously, for me, as I've kind of come up the steps of the ladder, I've realized that I have no other alternative, no other choice than to grow a multi-$100 million business.
To hit that many people. It's got nothing to do with the numbers. It's the
Right.
people, right?
It's
How do you
just-
access 1 billion people? You need a machine that can impact 1 million, who can then go out and impact 100 others.
Yeah. So again, everyone's mission is different.
Wow.
So I'm not saying like your mission, Danny, none of our missions need to be the same, but that's my mission, right? So that's my mission. Now, has my mission changed and evolved and gotten bigger over the years? Yes. Through time under the bar, through reps, through experience. But I approach every day, what is the mission? And then all 6 of those layers underneath it are basically things that I kind of work on a day-to-day. I've actually got, and I'm happy to share it with you, to share with your audience, a worksheet on this that I get people to go through on basically, you know, questions and triggers to ask themselves as they go up those pyramids. But that's kind of condensing it into a very short form.
I love how you've gone up the layers, and it gets the vision,
Yeah.
which ultimately, though, that does steer all prior 6 layers, because that's going to impact your team, how you direct your family, how you guide everyone is going to be through the lens of where are you trying to go. There's the clarity piece.
Because if you figure, if you've got the mission, right?
Yep.
Like, the downstream effect of that mission is you will leave a legacy. You will leave a legacy personally. You will, like, with your family. You will leave a legacy professionally with your team and your friends and your network, and then you'll leave a legacy on society. Right? Obviously, from that, we spoke about it before. You spoke about my wife and I being so aligned.
Yep.
Right? You multiply that with 7 kids as a family unit of 9. The family, you know, that family coherence, that family connection, you know, that's what helps push the legacy up and up and up and up. That's why, you know, that's a big part of why I do it. Any entrepreneur, by the way, I think, like, yes, we do it for our family, this and that, but let's be honest, we do it for ourselves too. And I think that there's a self-awareness piece. Like, I used to think that I'm just doing this for everyone, but no. I know there's part of me that wants to do this to test myself, to see what I can achieve in life as well. So I think, like, that's...
How far can you run it? So that was with Tony, did that exact piece, like the how far can you run it one as well, but also the being of service is the thing. And he goes, well, it's impossible to not have more fulfillment, not feel better as a person if you are in service of others eventually. But the default is as a byproduct, you yourself will benefit, right? And so you don't become. But the being of service part is exactly what I've discovered. Running the business at scale becomes you're there to try and serve your team to get the most out of those guys. And it's a really funny shift from I will do everything, I will bulldoze my way through everything, I will achieve the reward, I will be the ego comes. It's all that gets pushed to the side and slowly transition to I need to build up others, I need to invest in others, mentor others, build the skills of others, and it's such a 180 complete like shift. It's a paradigm shift, right? Because it's an identity piece. It's everything going. I do everything. I am the person. To we as a team do this. I help enable the team to do this. I'm of service to that team.
That's why I love, like, the whole process of being an entrepreneur, or even if you're someone working with an entrepreneur, helping as part of that tribe, going through that process, because the whole journey of, like, current state with limited experience to, previous state with limited experience to current state with more experience and a bigger vision, bigger mission, like, everyone in that organism needs a skill stack. All of them need to evolve. And I think that's where the whole leadership piece comes into play too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, again, that's probably been my biggest kind of learning curve the last 18 months is just skill stacking as a leader, right? That means empowering people. That means we, not I.
That's a big one.
right?
That's a big one.
That means focusing on the investment and genius zone quadrants and basically letting go of shit that you used to do when you were earning $100,000. Right? Don't get me wrong. There's still one or two tasks in that part of the business that I like to do 5-10 times a week. Like I still like to go undercover and do sales calls with my customer base. For a few reasons. Main reason is to kind of connect with the audience and understand what problems they're facing and why, because that has a filtration place back into marketing and product. And in most businesses, like with supplements, if this product isn't on point, from a marketing and efficacy standpoint, you're not going to feel as comfortable and congruent marketing it.
100%,
right?
man. 100%.
But if you can't market it, you're not going to fucking sell it. So it's like product marketing and sales. It's the strong suit for most of us as kind of founders and entrepreneurs. But I think sometimes as we scale and get bigger, we take ourselves, we don't need to do that anymore. And that's been one of the biggest mistakes I've made over the years, is like thinking that I shouldn't have any involvement in sales. I've got 12 sales agents. I've got, all that type of stuff. I still will do half a dozen calls a week for sure.
It's crucial, because knowing the points, I'm very thankful I did it so grassroots with it, because I met the people firsthand, and people struggling with the crappy sleep, with the stress, with the inflammation, with the hormonal imbalances. I met them all firsthand, and would sit there and have a conversation like this with them and go, all right, Karen, I see you got mother of 3 there. You wake up 4 times a night, you sleep 4 hours a night, you've got severe endometriosis, or like run through the whole picture. And it gave me a really acute image. And now looking back and looking at like public health data as well, seeing what that reinforces, I've got a very good picture from both micro and macro, right?
Yeah.
And it's irreplaceable. I was at my best formulating stuff when I was working like one-on-one with people, or in seminars with people. I'd have 20, 30 people, and would literally spend 2-3 hours doing Q&As with them. And it's crucial. You have to spend your time with access to that.
Under the bar. But I also think like most people that have gone from like 6 to 7 and then multi-7 and stuff like that, like at one point you were the SME, the subject matter expert. Right? At one point, you were the person delivering the service. At one point, you were the mentor for that service delivery. The problem that a lot of us make is we don't cross over, because it gets to a point where, like, and today it's a bit different. Like you could see someone like a Chris Williamson, right?
Yep.
Really cool guy. Met him a few months ago. We hung out for the day. Went to the island.
I love that phrase. Went to the island.
Went to the island. Right? Did all that. But one thing with him, like obviously he's an SME at the art of conversation and triggering people to have informative discussions. Now, for his business model, it requires him to be the SME. All of the other business stuff, he can bring on SMEs in business, in ops, and and manage and all that to manage it. That's a very that's a content-based business that is very prevalent these days, right?
Yes.
Where you get someone that is an SME that, for the success of the business long term, is going to stay in that SME chair for longer. But if you look at you, for example, right? And I would just assume, did you start as the SME, the prescriber, the go-to, this and that? Yep. If that was where all of your time was spent right now, would you be continuing to grow?
Oh, the ship had burned down. the entire thing would burn down. Yes.
And so you've obviously had to learn to deploy some of the knowledge that you've had in those spaces into different team members to handle some of that SME skill set for you.
100%. 100%. Yeah. You've got to fight. And it's become, honestly, a very big challenge. And I think for a lot of people listening who are in the, again, owner-operator, literally one-on-one scale still, because that's a big piece of like retailers, personal trainers, coaches, a lot of people who surround the supplement industry are in that sort of bracket, right? And I think there's a massive that's a crossover point. That's a really hard one to try and go, I am the person who does the one-on-one consults with the person who goes through who does the formulator product to help them with whatever issue it might be, who then follows up with, looks at their sleep data and goes through it all. And then finding a way, how can I bring in that tribe, people who are like-minded? How can I then educate all into a certain standard where they can pass that on? And I'm comfortable that on my behalf, they'll get that standard of information and service and so on. And then you guys took that and ran with that as a scalable concept and go, well, how can you try and put out the lessons from the early guys, you guys working with Poliquin way back, right? And go, how can I take out this real cutting edge stuff 20 years ago and put this on scale?
Well, I realized recently that how I went from being a 6-figure entrepreneur to a 7, then a multi-7-figure entrepreneur, stage 1 was being best in class skill stacking. So whatever problem that you're solving, if it's in nutrition, if it's in relationship counseling, if it's in psychology, whatever it is you need to get better at solving that problem. Courses, study, podcasts, whatever, right? From that, you can get to those revenue numbers just through sheer will of being the best expert in class, right? But the problem is when you start going to building out a team and stuff like that, as I originally learned with the gyms, I had to download my IP into systems that my team members, I had to take IP and I'll give you 70% of my IP, 80% of my IP. Well, actually, I'll give you as much IP as I can. And even if you are able to do 50, 60% of that, you're still going to be way better than the average person in my industry solving this problem and able to maintain IP and brand congruency, right? So I initially did that to build out a team without realizing that I was building playbooks. I just thought I was basically building out systems that would basically help monetize stuff for me. I didn't realize that I was actually leveling up and mentoring my team and actually giving them a process to be better at deploying the system so that they could do it to people, underneath them and stuff as they came in. So that's what I initially did. But the last 12 months, we've gone and bought all these businesses and amalgamated them into group. Now, each business had a different system, playbook, process, people, culture.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So accounting processes, all this type of stuff, right? And so we've had to basically take all of those, standardize them into one process of congruency across the group, right? And so I realized recently,
wow.
Yeah. I realized recently, like one of our limitations for this year was basically really solidifying that, not just culturally, but every single process in the business. That's where I've used AI.
Yes, and this is where we connected recently. I noticed that you were an early adopter with this, and have, I suppose, really become. And I'm seeing it now, like more and more, where people who are leading their field have already recognised this is going to be what the next revolution looks like.
It's here, man. It's fucking here, bro.
And people like Daniel Priestley, right, another great entrepreneur from like the UK, for example, has like 19 companies that he's built over time. He was talking about how we had the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and we changed from a feudalistic economy right through. And he said that shift to the industrial revolution we saw a few centuries ago is now equivalent to what we'll see now shifting with AI and what it's doing. So you're talking about, like we were saying before, shooting a Loom video, pumping that through ChatGPT, condensing that into some points. Where are you using AI in your business the most now to help sort of achieve that ability to systemize and scale? Because getting 5 companies to amalgamate, man, it's impossible. Like, that's a massive task.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like we haven't got on all of it, but like from a profitability and a growth perspective, like it's working what we're doing. So we're up. I was comparing our business units, our 3 core business units for January this year compared to January last year. They were all up, right? One of them was down. That's the one that I mentioned that's lost all the money.
Yes.
But the other 3 were up, right? And they were up not just in terms of rev, but also EBITDA or profit, but with half the staff.
Wow.
Right? So coming back to the point of how I'm using AI, 3 things. 1, to standardize processes, because again, I spoke about it before, systems scale businesses once you get to a certain point, right? Once you get to high multi-7 figures, 8 figures, you as a founder or entrepreneur or just a few of your leadership team, like you're not going to scale it by yourself. You need to download your IP into processes and give people playbooks. I love Dan Martell used the word playbook. To me, the way I look at a playbook compared to say an SOP is basically, I'm not only going to give you the tools that you need to win, I'm going to show you how to use these tools to win. And then I'm going to constantly reiterate these tools as the business evolves, right? So it's like it's a fucking operating the Clean Health Social Media for Dummies guide.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right? And it's constantly evolving month on month, quarter after quarter. So we've leveraged AI quite substantially in that place. The other area that leveraged it is basically just strategy, right? So I've been focusing on inputting like all of our product textbooks, our financials, this and that, and just feeding it with so much information with context, because that's a big thing. Like when you're building out a custom AI chatbot, or even just using ChatGPT, right? Or what's the new one? DeepSeek.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Deep State.
Yeah, China's got a great name for that one, don't they?
Right. And I haven't started using that one yet, but a few of our people in our business have, and are saying great things. But it's like you can give it an input. An input could be, okay, please give me a top of funnel marketing strategy to sell, Primabolics Everyday Health, right? That's an input. Be giving it context. Please create a top of funnel marketing strategy, noting that the core customer avatars are these 3 core areas, that this does this much revenue and is this much percentage of my business for the year, and that it's made up of these ingredients. Here's our forecast, for the year. Here are the numbers that we need. Like actually conversating with it like we are right now, like treating it like a sentient being.
Wow.
Right. My wife jokingly says to me, she's like, "You're having a fucking affair with CHG.ai." right? Right? I'm like, I'm sorry, I am. But, like treating it like a sentient being and actually giving it that, giving it that level of input and context, because each answer that it reiterates back to you, it grows upon. Because you've got to think of AI as like, it's an amalgamation of every subject matter expert in your field of all time put together at one point.
It's phenomenal. The best way I heard it summarized was, and I suppose there was probably created a bit of an existential crisis with a lot of people who were the SMEs, right? The people who are real experts in their field and had built their craft. And it was like that whole, but I heard it beautifully said once by a friend of mine who I had on a previous podcast. And he was saying that we're a library for knowledge. We don't own it. Everything prior to us has come from somewhere at some point. We're here to pass that information to the right person at the right time and hopefully apply it in a relevant way. We're simply like a library for these things, right? We don't own that knowledge. But
I spoke about the first one, just building out systems. The second one was strategy. I'll give you an example. Recently, with this loss in one of the business that we've had, I'm like, okay, there's three things that I can do with this. One is basically rebadging it under a different brand. One is closing the business down, or one is just selling it, right? And just cutting my losses. And so I knew that in my heart of hearts. But what I did was I gave the scenario to my chatbot, right? And it actually came back with the same scenarios.
Wow.
Right? So,
Wow.
it's actually now starting to think like me. Which was pretty amazing. And so when I actually got that back, it helped me reaffirm that this was the right way to go. And since then I've started executing that and blah, blah, blah. So that's the second area. The third area, coming back to your point, is output, right? Like over the years, I've become a very good copywriter. I've become good at sales, good at all this type of stuff. I recently used it to build out a bunch of new product marketing funnels and stuff like that. Stuff that would have taken me as a high level copywriter and marketer generally a week to do, I was able to do in half a day. So my whole thing, and I've actually mandated it in our businesses now, if you are not using AI in your part of the business, and there's a few different tools depending on the type of business that you're in and stuff like that we recommend, but like if you're not using it, you're not going to survive 6 months in, because the reality is, like with the advent of AI agents and things like that, a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now in business is getting automated week on week, day by day, stuff like that. Like you can use AI agents now to do all of your social media, all of your blog posts, fucking message your mum on WhatsApp. Like there's without you even doing it. Like there's so much stuff that this stuff can now do without a human.
It's remarkable,
right?
isn't it?
So if you're not adapting to it right now, like I was literally speaking to my CFO on the way here, and he's like, it's going to be like Kodak. At the end of this year, the way Kodak went, right? The and the photo comes out.
Thing. Yeah.
Right?
Polaroids, yep.
Polaroids.
Yeah.
That's you if you're not using AI this time next year. You're a fucking Kodak.
So what are the low-hanging fruits then for guys that are in this, and particularly for the small owner operators? Because I really want to speak to them, because again, that's a really relevant cohort. People are going to be listening to this because they get a lot of value, I suppose, out of the business angle too, which has been great today, be able to see it everywhere from the small, medium guys right through to large portfolios, right? But what's the low-hanging fruit? Someone's just going, I'll
give you an example. Yesterday, I sat down, so our eldest son, he's 17, turning 18, and his two friends who are both the same age, are all in year 12. They've just started a car wash and detail business, right? Out of nowhere, across the weekend.
They've been watching mum and dad.
Yeah. And like they built out the Instagram page and this and that. And like, they're like, they came around yesterday and they were washing our car, their granddad's car, and one of their mum's car. And then they were using that and then getting it videoed to create like a sizzle reel and all that type of stuff. I'm like, this is so awesome. Like, come upstairs, boys, at 12:30, and I'll spend 30 minutes sitting down with you and kind of just, I've got some ideas on how you can grow your business. And so again, they're starting. They've made $0. They're a startup, right? And I've actually got it's not up yet, but there'll be a video up on my YouTube channel talking specifically to this audience, which shameless plug, but go watch it, right? But specifically on it, I they were so worried, like they were lost when it comes to marketing.
Most are, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of people think you when you started this and created the formulas and the product stuff like that, like you were the SME that was just passionate about the amino acids, the micronutrients, the Ayurvedic herbs. Like you'd look at that, you'd look at the research. Oh, like
still do.
Yeah.
That's me. Yeah, that's me. 100%.
Then you rupture your bicep, right? So you were passionate about all that. And then the marketing just came organically off the back end of it. That's not something that you learn. And so they were like, oh, I don't know how to do a website, this and that. And so I'm like, okay, well, who is the customer avatar that you're trying to deal with? Write it down. Cool. What problem are you solving for them? Cool. Write it down. So like, here's the avatar, right? Here's the problem I'm trying to solve. What delivery vehicle are you using to solve that problem? In their case, it's time poor corporates or husband and wives between the ages of 30 to 60 that don't have the time or would rather someone come to their house to wash and detail their car. I'm like, cool, all right. How would you market that? And they're like, oh, like letterbox shops. I'm like, you could, but you'd be better off going into a community page on Facebook for this local area, which in our case was the Central Coast, posting about it. You'd be better off having a website that has some SEO set up so that when people search for this problem in Erina or in Newcastle, yours is one of the top 5 businesses to come up. And like, I could see their head spinning. I'm like, cool. So have you written all that down? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Now take that and feed it into ChatGPT. Take all that stuff and say, cool, I'm starting a business. This is the problem. This is what I'm solving. This is the demographic. These are the areas. These are the mediums. Now, can you build me out a 1-page or a 3-page white paper and strategic overview on how to start and market this business? Take that, feed it in. There's your starting point. It'll be 75% of what you need, but it will give you a starting point, even if you know fuck all about marketing.
And it's amazing how much the barrier to entry to education has now dropped as well in all areas. It was such a, back in like the early
and one other thing I said to them, I'm like, outside that, how many people are you watching on YouTube? Do you subscribe to on YouTube? And like, these are 17-year-olds, right? And they're all about 1,000 to 1,200. I'm like, cool. How many of them do you actually care about now? Because I'm like, you've been following them for 5-6 years and like, oh, 10%. I'm like, cool. Delete 90%. I'm like, what? Delete 90% of your YouTube so that you've only got those 100 people left, and then add that back with another 100 of people in the areas that you're wanting to learn about. Marketing, sales, product, customer experience, right? Why am I doing that? And do it on your Instagram, do it on your YouTube. So for like the entrepreneur right now that is passionate about a product but has no idea about how to service customers or how to market to customers, this thing here, this phone, this YouTube, this Instagram, this TikTok, every time you go on it, because you will go on it, we all do. We all have a level of addiction. All that I should see on this is people that I love and people that I can learn from in the area that I want to get better at. Because I'm like, if you do those two things, if you do the chat GPT thing, but then also surround your thing, because I'm like, how many hours are you on every day? And like 3-4 hours. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, scroll. I'm like, well, you're wasting your fucking time.
Yes.
Like, surround it now with information, and I guarantee you after a month or 2 months of doing that, you're subconsciously skill stacking in areas that you're deficient in right now.
Oh, it's massive because you're looking at 3-4 hours a day. So we're looking at,
it's worse for that age bracket.
It's way worse. 3 to 4 is being conservative. 21 to 28 hours a week. It's a part-time job. And if you can build into even half of that, something that's really constructive, man, that is a great place to start. Now to wrap up, because I'm conscious of your time, Daine, but it'd be,
and I'm hungry too.
It'd be remiss of me owning a supplement brand and to get you on a podcast to not ask you where supplements have tied in earlier on, and also now. What relationship do you have with supplements now? I'm just curious as a
consumer. Well, it could, like, look, obviously, like you, like probably, back in the day, Super Pump, getting in there, all that type of stuff, like
good old Richard.
All that type of stuff. If I look at kind of like supplements for me, and I think it's the seasons of life, right? So if I use my 17-year-old as son, right, he'll like use the Zombie Labs pre-workout formula. Or something like that, right? Like full of caffeine, like let's go, let's train. I'm like, I wouldn't touch that. I'm going to have fucking arrhythmias if I do that at 42. So for me, like where I'm at right now, it's all about longevity. It's all about stress management. And then obviously with this bicep tendon, I've been experimenting with the peptides. I didn't end up doing the injectables because I'm a little bitch when it comes to needles. I actually went with orals. And I think there's a bit of conflicting research about like oral peptides and stomach acidity and stuff like that. I actually found out from a friend who owns, I don't know if you've heard of Level Up Health.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah. So, and have you heard of Dave O'Brien?
Yes.
Yeah, so Dave O'Brien's a former student of mine.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Right?
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And Jake Dolshall?
Yeah,
So
phenomenal.
Jake Dolshall is one of my former students and clean health trainers.
Oh, unreal. Oh, man, these are my boys. This is awesome. Yeah, cool.
And so Dave started his own supplement company. So we're actually doing a course. So Dave, Jake, and I will, Dave and Jake, but in clean health, we're actually doing a course on like functional nutrition and gut health. We're actually kind of starting to put that together now. So
that's exciting.
Ironic kind of how it comes about. But I was actually speaking to them and they're like, well, yes, the research shows this, but actually it comes down to it's like with magnesium, right? Or like a zinc. You can have like a zinc salt and a zinc chelate, or a magnesium salt and a magnesium chelate.
Yes, yep.
Now the salt generally isn't going to have the same bioavailability or absorption as a chelate. They're like, it's the same peptides. I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. And like, so yes, if you get the right, chelated version to use the comparison of magnesium of the peptide, A, you're going to get better uptake and absorption from it. B, like you can do things like take it 3 hours away from food, have some bicarb soda before it, so you buffer the stomach acidity, and then you're going to absorb more from an oral standpoint. And so, I applied that, and actually, ironically, and I'll kind of come back around, when I came in and got surgery on my arm, because my ortho was all for peptides. Right? He was a big, because if you look at most, and he works with the wallabies and stuff like that, so working with a lot of high-level humans, right?
Yeah.
And so most practitioners that are working it's like Charles Poliquin back in the day, working with high-level humans, they're ahead of the research by 4 or 5 years.
Yes, God, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And so he was like, look, I'd recommend the injectable. He's like, I've heard conflicting about the oral, but he's like, you do whatever's comfortable. So pre-surgery, for 3 weeks pre-surgery, I was doing the orals. When I went in and did the surgery and came out, he ended up giving me, meds to actually slow down blood flow. He's like, because your body had repaired and was healing so quickly that after going in and doing the surgery, you had too much blood flow, and I was concerned that you're going to build up a hematoma.
Wow.
Right? And so I didn't change anything other than taking the peptides. And then secondary to that, I had bloods done pre-peptides and post-peptides. The only variable I changed was having the peptide during an acute injury phase and training less. And even though I'd put on some extra body fat, but all of my biochem markers had gone up.
Wow.
Right.
Peptides are a massive one in the States. You see like the Ben Greenfields of the world talking about them
they are. And I think the more I've looked into it, it's like I was speaking with Alan Aragon, right?
Yeah.
So he's our chief science officer at Clean Health.
Wow.
And obviously, Alan's from the evidence-based school, and he's actually building out a course for us right now on supplements, right? I'm like, so what have you done in peptides? It's like, well, I haven't really done that much research in the space right now. I'm looking into it, but I'm not as far ahead of it. And so I've said, look, go and look into it, because I personally believe that in supplementation, like at least from my experience, so you asked me on my experience,
yes,
right?
That's what I want. Yep.
Peptides are the future. Now whether or not you can get them where they're bioavailable in a oral form and a powder form, like there's still some debate on that, and maybe there's cases, as Dave and that gave, where you can. Maybe there's cases where the technology improves over the years so that it can become more bioavailable without having to do injectables. But it seems to be pointing towards that there's some super physiological benefits
massively
from using peptides. I think especially when you're looking into, as a husband, father, getting into your 40s, or even a woman, like just longevity, quality of life, being pain-free. So like I use the peptides. Curcumin is another big one.
Love it.
That I use. I like to alternate between magnesium glycinate and magnesium threonate. Obviously, glycinate helping a bit more with liver detox, threonate just helping with that blood-brain barrier GABA production, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love them both.
See, look at you. I'm fucking going back into the database here, mate. Trainer database here.
It's all the time with the bot. It's helping. I can see those are great forms. I love I use glycinate and magnesium threonate in my sleep formula. And downstairs you've got some NMN in there as well.
You have magnesium.
I use them in my sleep.
In one?
I use them both. I do a blend with I do citrate, biglycinate, and L-threonate, all of my sleep product. I use biglycinate in my hormonal products, like my test boosters, estrogen products. Actually, I use amino acid chelate in my estrogen product. But honestly, one of the best things that the average punter listening to this would be, what are some low-hanging fruits of supplements? Micronutrients, and the big ones like throwing in, and curcumin, beautiful. Micronutrients and curcumin, phenomenal.
Do you like? There's a curcumin, quercetin, and boswellia.
Yes, quercetin and boswellia. Boswellia is an awesome one.
Because a lot of people are like mixing those together now into one form.
Great anti-inflammatory. And curcumin's one of those great ones too. If you're on, recovering from issues, and we're also using pain meds as well, a lot of those things can be quite harsh on the gut. So we start throwing in things that can help to lower inflammation in the gut specifically, and it starts being quite protective against a lot of those ulcerative effects you can get from chronic painkiller use. So using curcumin, 500 milligrams once or twice a day, boswellia alongside, even Devil's Claw is awesome like that as well. Really good anti-inflammatory anti-inflammatory, like a very old herb. But curcumin's great because so many other benefits too, with like liver detoxification, estrogen, and playing around with heaps of cool stuff. But a wicked anti-inflammatory, and really strong antioxidant too.
Probably the only other thing that I use is my first. I'm very big on having half a liter of water within an hour within 15 minutes of waking up. But I'll have that initial 1.5 liter bottle of water. I'll put creatine monohydrate in it.
The OG, yes,
and electrolyte formula in it. And then I put, at the moment, because I recently with my bloods, my zinc was down, put a little bit of zinc in it.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
I have it first thing in the morning, but I mean, obviously the research around creatine has changed a lot from when we first started. Louisa Nicola, I don't know if you heard of her. She's like a neuroscientist based out of the States. She's done a lot of research and looking at kind of into creatine and fucking cognitive Alzheimer's and cognitive function.
Massively, mate.
And stuff like that. Yeah. So the more I've looked at that, like creatine seems to be one of those almost like, it's like fish oil of 10 years ago.
Yes. Great analogy.
It's like fish oil, like it's
everything.
It's a basic that you should have.
It's the everything, mate. And supplementation has come a long way to being more towards geared around optimizing the everyday person now. So it's like when I made the everyday series, it was like, what are the low-hanging fruits? And like you said, the creatine is one of the ones that's everything, right? Like it used to be the performance goat. It was the goat for performance, but now it's looking at cognitive function, looking at like mitochondrial energy production, because I've learned that energy is the rate limiting factor for me in business, right? And I think it's the rate limiting factor in all areas of life is how much energy you've got. And I look at how the mitochondria get affected with stress and inflammation, and I look at like how to make your mitochondria just supercharge them. So I'm looking at your creatines, NMNs, magnesiums all the time, and those ones there make the biggest bang for your buck. Like you throw them on some creatine and magnesium,
I think creatine, magnesium, electrolytes, like and even curcumin. I think curcumin has become like a multi.
Yes, it has.
With inflammation, like that's just a base health stack, right? The other things that I look at for me as entrepreneurs, I like to fast for the first half of the day. That works because like a lot of people like looking at nootropics, right?
Yes.
Biohacking
a bit with
And look, it's I find for me with my natural dopamine levels, I don't need things to fucking perk me up even more. For me, the best nootropic is just a coffee. To be honest, I find that works for me. I've been experimenting recently with coffee, mixing in a bit of Manuka honey in with it, just for a bit of taste, because obviously Manuka honey is a powerful antimicrobial. Got a lot of things like that. So I think like for me, it's like the base stuff. I think obviously fasting works for me. The other things, accessory sauna, ice bath. I think for me, training, especially the last 6, 7, I haven't done upper body in 7 weeks.
Well, given.
Right? And I've still got another fucking like 9 weeks to go. So it's going to be like 4 or 5, well, actually 5 months before I can, have been able to train upper body again. So I think for me these days, it's about like supplements that make me feel good and perform better just in life is my number one prerogative. When I was younger, it was all about fucking aesthetics, cutting, this and that. And, I just think it depends on the season of life that you're in too.
Oh, massively, man. When I started Primabolics, that was the season I was in massively.
Oh, man. Aminos, essential aminos, branched
chains. That was massive. It was everything, man. It was a young bodybuilder. It was all about, how many stims can I throw in there? And it was all gear, food, and stims, right? And then
going to the comp on the weekend with the boys.
Exactly. Man, and then as you evolve through, now it's looking at like longevity, micronutrients, and things that can help us age better, detoxify better. It's funny, man. It follows you. And you said that with your businesses, how they've, as you've had to shift, like as you've aged, they have too, and as your vision's expanded, they've expanded. And it's funny, mate, how they all have parallels. But I appreciate you sharing your stacks there and what you're doing now at this point, because obviously you're around some of the greatest minds in the field all the time.
I'm very fortunate because, like, my academic advisory board, I've got multiple PhDs on it. I can go, hey, what's the latest research? And this, like, bang, So even Alan and I, like, we were chatting about peptides, and he was like, there's a lot of stuff in rodents, this and that. I'm like, you know what I reckon you should do? I reckon go, like, do you have any like orthopedic surgeons, sports medicine doctors in California, right? I'm like, go chat with them and see what they're using on the front lines with patients and get their empirical evidence as to what they feel works. Because I remember I'd obviously heard Jake and Dave, and obviously they're former students of mine and people that I respect. They're industry innovators. They're great at what they do.
They are.
But again, like, it's not believing, which is like, okay, well, cool, they're saying that. They also sell a supplement.
There's a commercial type. 100%.
Right, it's a commercial type. Yes. So that skeptic in me is like, okay, cool. Not saying I don't believe you,
of course.
but I'm not sold yet.
Yeah, definitely.
When I spoke to the ortho, who was a massive proponent, I was not expecting it. I was expecting, because he's like, so, post-surgery, he's like, I know what you're going to ask. He's like, he's like, yes. I'm like, I haven't even asked you. He's like, peptides. I'm like, oh, how'd you know? It's like, look at you.
It's you. It's you. Of course you're going to ask.
Of course you're going to ask.
It'd be weird if you didn't.
And he's like, short answer, yes. I'm like, huh? And then he went into this kind of scientific like rant about it, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, so how would you compare the recovery rate of people that are using it compared to not? And he's like, it's night and day. He's like, you can use it and you will heal twice as fast as someone who's not. He's like, I can't. Is there studies on it in humans? No.
Won't be for a few years.
Won't
probably.
be for a few years.
Yes, yeah.
But I can tell you, as I'm not telling you to take that. I'm not saying that you should sign off on that. But off the record, if it was me, he's like, actually, when it was me and I got a shoulder surgery, I used peptides.
Man, it's a funny thing, isn't it? How that you said before, it keeps ahead of the science, right? I found that we're going through uni as well. There wasn't a textbook for one of the chemistry courses I was running because they said by the time the round of studying they're trying to look at gets published, goes through, gets issued as a textbook, it's been 1 to 3 years, and by then it's outdated information. And so it was constantly trying to refer to like it was talking to academics really that was got me early on trying to go, how do I actually learn what's relevant in the field? And with supplements, we're lucky. The Aussie supp industry in particular is so voraciously innovative. It's constantly just changing, growing, new thing, new ingredient, new amino acid, new enzyme, new. And it's really cool to be able to, I suppose, we're moving so fast that it will take time for it to go from some of these ingredients. We're looking at early rodent studies, then has to go to the humans, then has to go to double-blind placebos, then has to go through to publishing journals. And
it's probably a good area to like, to I say close out for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like, those are perfect examples, I feel, where someone who's put time under the bar, skill stacking, experience, delaying gratification, and doing all those things, is now has the confidence to back. Because I always say there's two things that I make decisions from: data and intuition, the gut. Right? So it's like, yes, I want to be provided with information, but we've all got this innate ability where we can feel, or we could feel if this feels right, right? And so the doctor I gave an example of, he's seen the data and he has made a decision that feels right. Now, because he's followed his intuition, he is now getting better results and better serving humanity. Right? So I think coming back to entrepreneurs, sometimes just fucking back yourself.
Take a swing at it.
Take a swing at it. And as long as you're applying it from a place of like, I feel like leaving the planet in a net positive, and you're not doing it in an irrational way. Like it'd be like someone that is saying, do a juice cleanse fasted for 3 weeks straight. You know what I mean? To someone who's morbidly obese and on metformin and Seroquel and all this medication.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I get you're well-intentioned, but that's probably not the right place to go. But I think that's ultimately that's fucking life. And that's why that's why I love entrepreneurism, because I think it's the best expression for oneself in life.
Man, I love that, because it's gone full circle from doing some very high-level business advice right through to tying that into what personal life and family life looks like, where those values sit in amongst today's life for you, and then bring it through to what stuff has followed you along that time, and how supplements are plugged in. That's been and wrapped up in a really nice, succinct, easy summary there. Man, I really value that you've come on today and shared a lot of those, because not a lot of people get a glimpse into what it looks like running an 8-figure empire, doing it with doing it with a family of 9, and alongside your wife as well, and growing from being a one-on-one PT right through. So, man, I hope that everyone was listening today got epic value out of what we got Daine on for today. And mate, thanks for being able to wrap that up with some really good, just trust your gut sometimes and just have a punt at it and back yourself as a really great way to finish from the high level stuff right through to a good take home. So,
cheers, brother.
Thanks for coming on. Likewise, mate.
Thanks, mate. Awesome.